Hi guys, so since it's October, which is Halloween season, I thought I'd do a few little horror reviews. I originally wanted to do another horror season like I used to do a few years ago, where I reviewed 31 films across the 31 days of October, but I've been working on other stuff over the last few months, so I've not really had the chance to do it. But I thought I'd still get a few reviews out over the next few weeks, so although it's not a full horror season thing, it's kind of a little miniature one, I guess. And I thought I'd start off with one that I've seen the most recently, the 1992 movie Braindead. When you think of Peter Jackson, you most likely think of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, King Kong, or the Hobbit trilogy, these huge epic blockbuster movies that are filled with pioneering special effect work. However, he actually started from a completely different background, making horror comedies. While I think The Frighteners is his best horror movie, which I've also reviewed on the channel, which blends the grand scope of his future films with a darker style, a strong follow-up for me is this movie. A film that is straight up one of the most batshit insane films I've ever seen. The film follows a man called Lionel who lives at home with his super controlling mother. When he starts dating a girl called Paquita, his mother decides to spy on him, and while doing so is bitten by a rabid rat monkey imported from Skull Island. Yes, that's Skull Island. This leads to her becoming a zombie and infecting other people. Although he tries to keep the zombies under wraps, they're basically like big children that are impossible to control. Two of them have sex, which leads to a zombie baby being made. They keep trying to escape. It's just pure chaos. Lionel's uncle discovers the zombies and thinks that Lionel's a necrophiliac, leading him to blackmail Lionel to give him the estate and inheritance. He then throws a huge house party, which goes about as well as you'd expect. This leads to one of the most insane and overly violent third acts I've ever seen in a film. This film is definitely not one you should take seriously, and one that I do think not everyone's going to enjoy. I recently rewatched it in a group, expecting everyone to find it as hilarious and enjoyable as I do, and although everyone did laugh, they all considered it to be pretty terrible. However, I've always had this huge soft spot for this film's unnecessary excessiveness. The comedy is incredibly lowbrow and comes mostly from the super vile gross out moments. Unlike fellow New Zealand horror comedy What We Do in the Shadows, this isn't a witty or well-written movie. It shares more in common with the original Evil Dead in how the comedy came from the sheer ridiculousness of the gore, as well as some great classic slapstick moments. And although I personally love it, if this doesn't sound like something you'd enjoy, then it most likely will not be. The opening can be considered a little bit slow, but I think they play up the hamminess of a classic B movie really well in these moments. The camera work intentionally makes you feel gross by using incredibly unflattering close-ups which are super cartoony and ridiculous. The acting is equally cartoony, with pretty much all the characters being incredibly over the top, especially characters like the mother, the uncle, and the priest, who are all ridiculous. Although the majority of the comedy comes from the over the top nature of everything, there are some great lines throughout. The scene with the priest is, in my opinion, the funniest scene in the movie, and it gets me every single time.
I kick ass for the Lord!
There's another scene that I really love where Lionel takes the zombie baby for a walk. I've honestly watched these two scenes disconnected from the film so many times at this point because I can't help but cry with laughter every time I see them. When it comes to the film's third act, I have nothing but praise for the incredible effect work with these extreme gore sequences. The way Peter Jackson managed to create such incredible gore effects that are cartoony and also kind of realistic on such a small budget is incredibly aspiring. In fact, one of my favorite things about this film generally is the amount that Peter Jackson was able to achieve with such a small budget. It had a $3 million budget, which is still a fair amount, but it's pretty small all things considered, especially when compared to some of the monstrous budgets on other Peter Jackson movies. The fact that someone who directed a film like this was trusted to make one of the biggest movies ever made is pretty insane, and because of that, I think anyone who wants to make films needs to watch Peter Jackson's earlier films like this and Bad Taste. They highlight a director showing off their skill for effect work and set pieces, as well as creative camera work, and having a lot of fun doing it, never taking themselves too seriously. The film is chaotic, gory fun, one that not everyone is going to click with, but that I personally really enjoy and return to anytime I want to shut my brain off and make myself feel really gross. I'm going to give Braindead a 4 out of 5.